in the midst of all the backlash that people are rightfully giving, the assignment of whatever her name is, the director of the new Rey movie, the fact that they're even continuing the story of Rey, the character universally just, the public said no. Culture said no to Rey. That was a character that Kathleen Kennedy put all of her chips on, forced onto you. That was her only direction to J.J. Abrams when he was making The Force Awakens, was just make the lead character a woman. Because that's all Kathleen Kennedy cares about when it comes to Star Wars. It's just a vehicle for feminism. That's all we care about. And so this character was manufactured. She didn't come in organically. She was she's just whatever, manufactured to be a feminist poster child. And at the end of that, trilogy, who wanted to hear from her anymore other than people? That's the thing. When you get poster children characters like this for ideologies, like Captain Marvel, she's another one, or Kamala Khan, she's another one. No one actually really likes these characters. Even the people that claim they like these characters, they like seeing their ideology championed. They like the fact that their ideology is being championed, that their ideology is being placed on the posters of these movies, quote unquote posters. No one really likes these characters because it's impossible to. These characters have no depth. They have no, there's nothing you can be inspired from. They're mouthpieces. They're mouthpieces for an ideology, an agenda. And so no one wants another race story. Even those who say they do, they just want more mouthpieces for their agenda. That's just, more opportunities for their mouthpiece of their agenda to speak. And that's, you don't want story then, you want a sermon, So the fact that they're doing the movie is absurd, and rightfully so. There's backlash about it. They are trying to paint it, just what business as usual. What is their MO? Pretend that any kind of logical backlash is just trolls. Oh, it's you basement dwelling incels. Oh, or if they don't go that route, it's you're just so negative. You stop it with the negativity. As I said in my last stream, criticism is not negativity. Constructive criticism, story criticism, that's if you're writing a story, if you're making art, then be prepared for it. Even if you're announcing the type of art you're going to make, if that's the wrong approach, you're going to get criticized, and it's rightfully so. So Iger apparently explicitly stated in some, I don't remember if it was an interview or, you can check out The Fourth Age. Apparently he talked about it recently, but explicitly stated that he wants, and Kathleen Kennedy has said this before, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. They've said that they want to evolve Star Wars away from Lucas's vision. Oh, we love Lucas. We'll say all these wonderful things about Lucas, but we're in a different time now. We got different audiences. We got new generations. We want to evolve the franchise, evolve it into, new and what it should, be. And so I make that thumbnail that you're not evolving Star Wars. When it comes to the evolution of a franchise, of a story, of a character, that happens organically. If you're trying to evolve something, it's just like evolution in biology, right? You can't try to evolve something. That doesn't work. It's something that happens naturally. Superman naturally shifted from just being able to jump tall buildings in a single bound to actually being able to fly. That was a natural progression. It's what the public wanted. They pretty much figured he was flying anyway. By the time we hit the radio, let's just make him fly. It wasn't people weren't trying to evolve the character. The only because if you want to evolve Star Wars, then you got to have a motive. And what is their motive? Their agenda, their ideology. Let's evolve Star Wars past this hero's journey and make it 100% an unquestioned platform for our ideology. That's what Iger and Kathleen Kennedy are all about. So you're not evolving Star Wars. Evolution is something that happens naturally and organically in a story, in a mythology. What you're doing is changing it. You're outright changing it abruptly, unnaturally, uncomfortably, disgustingly, changing it. Now, this ties in with a interview or a question that was asked to Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau, to his credit, as far as I know, didn't say he's wanting to evolve Star Wars. But he was asked, they asked him, since you're, a little bit more power, making the movies and all that kind of stuff, could you ever have any sway to re-release the original trilogy in the original format, the original theatrical release, not the specialized editions, that Lucas did in the 2000s, but the original. And, technically they haven't been released since the last release of those was in the first DVD release of the specialized Star Wars original trilogies came with a separate disc of the theatrical version. That's the last time that's been officially sold by Lucasfilm. Before the specialized versions came out, they did VHS. They were still selling those. But DVD form, I think the only time DVD has officially been sold was in that first package of the specialized version, which had a DVD of the theatrical trailer as well. I have those. I also have some pirated copies that I was given of the Blu-ray of the theatrical version, which is very well done. So anyway, back to the story. They were asked, Jon Favreau, could you ever, maybe use your sway, do you think, to have Disney release, or do you think they ever will release the original theatrical cuts again? And his response to the question was, I think, very telling, because everybody thinks, first it was Favreau and Filoni were our heroes. They were fighting the good fight. They were trying to get Star Wars back on course. Then Filoni showed his hand, just being absolute nuts, just only wanting to do his Clone Wars, re-envisionings or rebirths, whatever. And so then I hear people say, well, Favreau's our guy. Okay, Filoni's a little crazy, but Favreau's our guy. Favreau's not your guy either. He's Kathleen Kennedy's man. He's a better storyteller than her or a lot of the people she's had attached to Star Wars. That's not, that's obvious. He's a better storyteller, certainly. He's an amazing director. He's done wonderful films, in the past. But he's been very explicit and very plain about the fact that he's only filling in the gap between Return of the Jedi and the New Order of the sequel trilogies, rather. That's what he's doing. He's writing. He's trying to get you to Rey and Kylo Ren. He's not trying to change the direction or retcon anything. He's just filling in the gap. So people thinking he's this and that. No. Okay, so Favreau's response to the question, he said, look, I don't think anybody besides, us would really even want the theatrical releases again. People my age who remember the original trilogy, sure, we might like it, but are we really even enough to buy it? And I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, people today, the Star Wars fans of today, that's not their Star Wars. Their Star Wars. And he said, there's the prequel fans, that was their Star Wars, not the original trilogy. And he said, people today, Gen Z and whatnot, their Star Wars is what Disney's doing, or the Mandalorian might be their Star Wars. And, while on the surface, that's not incredibly insulting or anything, I think it really betrays a very deep misunderstanding of how a mythology in our culture works. As I say in the title of this Office Hours, it's not a community sandbox. A great franchise that's taken root in our culture, in our, collective consciousness, isn't a community sandbox that different generations get to come in and make something that they like in the Star Wars universe. And now someone's going to go over here and that's their Star Wars and that's your Star Wars and that's my Star Wars. And no, that's not what it is. There is room for organic evolution, in a franchise, but Star Wars took hold because of the hero's journey of Luke Skywalker. That is what held Star Wars in our public consciousness for decades, long past the point where even before the prequels came about, toys were still being sold. Children still knew who Darth Vader was, even before the prequels were being sold. Now, it is true when the prequels came out, because of, just the blast of marketing and the blast of, you did have many of you people here are probably from that generation who, were kids or teens or whatever when the prequels came out, and that was your first exposure to Star Wars. And I have heard from this or that person that, only watched the prequels and kind of thought that was it. But I don't think that's as rampant an experience as other people might make you think. I think more often than not, the prequels led people to the original trilogy, or at least you couldn't really watch the original trilogy for very long or go very long if you really loved it and really rewatched it and really got into the universe. It's just a matter of time before you hear about Luke and you go watch the original trilogy. It was an era where people's attention spans, kids, attention spans weren't so tarnished, and they could understand the value of a movie made, 10, 20, 30 years ago. So, you know, it's like today, try to get a teenager or a preteen or child to watch any movie that wasn't made in the last 5 years. Oh, so old. Oh, so long. You know, kids today can hardly watch movies made today because they're the TikTok generation. You know, that's their only attention span when it comes to any kind of variation of a narrative. So, I think he misunderstands that idea. Star Wars isn't. It's not like relative truth or something. You know, that's silly too. Oh, it's my truth. Your truth. Oh, it's your Star Wars, but it's not my Star Wars. No, that's not how Star Wars works. Star Wars took hold in the consciousness because of Luke Skywalker's story, the original hero's journey, the original trilogy. And if you go too far away from that, you can't just explain that as, well, that's just not their Star Wars, but it's my Star Wars and your Star Wars. No, that doesn't work. You know, I'm not saying it would necessarily be lucrative or not to sell the original theatrical cut. In fact, I don't know if it would be. I think enough of us would buy it that it would be worth it. But you know, today's generation, they're a lost cause for a number of different reasons. No offense if you're, you know, a Gen Zer here. I'm sure that, you know, if you're listening to my channel, you got to be an exception, right? But yeah, you know, so it's such a fundamental misunderstanding of what Star Wars is, of how mythologies work in culture, to think that it's, you know, different things to different people. Now, I mean, to some degree, that's true, right? Maybe you watched the original trilogy and you didn't so much resonate with Luke. You really resonated with Han, you know, the space pirates, you know, kind of thing, or whatever, smugglers. And, you know, I mean, yeah, so it can appeal to different people for different reasons, but it's not, to the point where it becomes different, completely disparate versions. And that's what Disney's trying to do now. Disney's sequel trilogy already is a completely disparate thematically, narratively, character motivationally, you know, in every way. It's a disparate thing from the original trilogy, from what Star Wars has always been.